Welcome to the Intersection podcast. Today we're doing a Women in Mobility Takeover. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today and to be hosting this panel with 4 incredible women at Miovision. Our office is full of brilliant female minds, but we don't often get an opportunity to get together like we are today and have open and honest conversations about some of the challenges that we might face in our careers and some of the moments that have helped define who we are. Having conversations like the one that we're having today, I hope that we'll all leave here feeling more connected and a stronger team. So I'd like to start by inviting Jill to have a seat with me on the couch. The rest of you can go and sit over there for now.
Can you hear me?
Okay,
Perfect.
so Jill is our Vice President of People and Culture and is always a leader in building inclusive teams. And so I'd like to welcome you to have this discussion with me today.
Thank you.
You've been at Miovision for almost 8 years, but you've spent your whole career in the tech sector, which is a predominantly male industry, and you've worked for notable companies such as BlackBerry and Sandvine. So I'd like to invite you to you're going to kick off the conversation that we're having today by telling me how you think diversity, particularly gender diversity, contributes to innovation and problem solving within Miovision and the industry as a whole.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, I just want to say I have been here for 8 years, and when I started at Miovision, it was a very male-dominated environment. And I'm looking around right now, and last year when we talked about International Women's Day, it was just Lynn and I that really were the leaders in the business that had a lot of conversations around what this means and what it meant to us. But now I'm sitting up here with a whole host of women, and I'm looking in the crowd and seeing that we've got a whole ton of leader women here that are doing all the right things and pushing for all the right characteristics of what it means to be a strong woman in tech. And so it's really important that I get to be here and speak to what this means to me. So thank you for having me. I'll just say that right out of the gate. But when it comes to problem solving, so I'm going to take you from the direction of like what it means in tech, problem solving with everything, because at the end of the day, problem solving is something that we're constantly always looking at and we're always trying to solve for, and we have to be comfortable with the fact that we could make mistakes, we will make mistakes, and everybody in this room is okay with that. And we need to be passionate and support each other, that at the end of the day, everyone's trying to do the best that we can, and we need to work together to achieve the right outcomes for the business.
Thanks so much, Jill. Now, maybe thinking about the flip side a little bit, can you talk a bit about what ongoing challenges women face and what we might be able to do to address them?
Yeah, so I've been pretty vocal in articles around a balanced working environment for women, right? And out of COVID, we had a whole host of conversations around work-life balance and how do we still support remote work. And I've always come out and said that this is something that we as employees all really, really are passionate about. From a competitive standpoint in the industry, it's made Miovision stand out because it does give the ability for people to work from home, be mothers, be sisters, be daughters, do all the things. But it's also great for men too, that everyone gets the ability to make their own choices. And so work-life balance is something that I'm really, really passionate about. I know a lot of people in here in the crowd are and online are very passionate about it, but I think that's something that's always going to make sure that we stand out as a different organization.
Thanks so much, Jill, and thanks for sharing those insights and for all that you do to support our staff as a strong leader and to be a champion for women. I'd like to invite you to take a seat over there now. Everyone, yeah, thank you, Jill. And I'll invite Candice Sarnecki to come over, our Senior Director of Sales. So Candice is new to Miovision, and I think it's so great that we get to have you here today so that everyone can get to know you a little bit better. Candice has spent 25 years building a strong sales career in technology, climbing the ladder at TELUS, and driving business expansion. We are so lucky to have you at Miovision. Can I have one more round of applause for Candice? So Candice, I'd like to start by asking you, what inspired you to pursue a career in a male-dominated field like transportation technology?
That's a great question. And actually, I spent quite a bit of time last night trying to come up with the right way to answer that one. I'll be honest with you, I don't think I got into the transportation industry because it's a male-dominated industry. I've actually been in male-dominated industries, as you said, for probably the better part of my career. And when I was a bright-eyed and idealistic undergrad, I was trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Because I really wasn't sure I wanted to go to work yet. And I had the opportunity to join an urban planning program where I met a really dear friend of mine who is a top planner in the city of Windsor. And she ignited the passion in me about how I could influence and change some of the cities that I've been a part of. And I've kind of lived in a lot of different cities throughout the US. And it wasn't until 26 years later, after I spent 22 years in telecom, building up a resume and experience in technology and IoT, that I actually got the opportunity to come and join this amazing organization and take all of that experience and be able to come and make some of those idealistic ideas that I had when I was a lot younger than I am now, that I wanted to change. And when I coupled that with the idea that I was going to be able to work with people like Lynn and Simone, it was an absolute no-brainer for me.
Thank you so much, Candice, for sharing that. Maybe to dig a little deeper into your personal experience, can you share any specific challenges that you've faced as a woman working in city mobility sector and how you've overcome them?
For sure. I mean, I've only been here, next week will be 3 months, so I haven't been in this particular industry for long, but having been in the telecom space, it was pretty obvious every time I walked into a room, I was pretty much the only woman at the table or in a meeting. In most cases, I was the only senior female sales leader at the table, in a team, amongst my peers. And so for me, it was really important to surround myself with really strong mentors, women that were going to challenge me, that were incredibly smart, that were not going to let me off the hook and shrink into the background. But it was also really important for me to seek out some of the strongest men in leadership positions that were going to equally challenge me and make me a better person. And by doing that, I was able to make sure that my voice never shrank, no matter how nervous I might have been walking into the room. And it really forced me to kind of pull up to the table and share my ideas.
That's great. I think someone shared with me once, your leaders are your leaders, the person that you report to, but it's really important that you seek out the mentorship that you want and you really make it happen for yourself. So I think it's wonderful for some of the young women here to get to hear about your experience doing that and encourage them to do the same. And on that note, thinking about those sort of young aspiring women, as we celebrate International Women's Day, what message or advice would you offer to young women aspiring to enter your field or pursue leadership positions?
That's a great question. And I think over my career, I've had some pretty amazing women that have given me some great advice. And the few pieces that have kind of stuck with me is, one, always be authentic. Never be somebody that you're not, and never apologize for who you are. The second one is be brave. Doesn't matter how uncomfortable you feel walking into that situation, put on your favorite lipstick, put on your favorite shoes, whatever it is, and walk in strong and be confident. I think the other two pieces that I would give you is seek out the people that inspire you and really try to form a relationship with them so that they push you and you have an opportunity to push them. And more importantly, we spend so much time at work, it's often easy to forget to have fun. Some of the people that I have the best relationships with and the best memories that I have in my career are people that I stopped to actually have fun in the moment. Sometimes it wasn't so fun and it was fun in, retrospect, but, stop and really relish those moments and use them to fuel you as you move forward.
Thanks so much, Candice. I just realized I didn't give anyone an opportunity to ask Jill a question, so I'm really sorry about that. But she'll be around afterwards if you have questions for Jill. Are there any questions in the audience for Candice? We've got one in the front row. Could we get a microphone here?
Yeah, you just talked about when you're walking into a room, a boardroom situation, there might be a lot of men in that room, and being brave, being bold, and not holding back. I'm wondering, for the other people in that room, what could they do to create an environment that makes it more comfortable and allows you to be at your best when you're walking in?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing, and this goes for anybody, really just be who you are at the end of the day. It's really easy when you're uncomfortable or when you're nervous about a situation or you're trying to figure out what exactly your role in that room is going to be, to kind of have a bit of a standoffish appearance, right? And I would say, honestly, for all of us, the more authentic you are, the more others in that room are going to feel comfortable about voicing their opinion and what they have to offer. And more importantly, the conversation becomes authentic. And that's where we really get to driving business as partners instead of as two different or three or six or 10 different people across the room.
Thanks so much, Candice. I think we've got one more question over here from Simone.
You and I saw a lot together. Can you give an example to the room of how you can be an ally in certain situation, but potentially citing an example of things we might have experienced where someone could have stepped up and be an ally, and how can you kind of guide others to do such gestures that are very simple, but not everybody realizes how much impact it can have in a room or in a meeting or and such and such.
I think one of the most important things that we can all do is listen to understand instead of to respond. It is so easy to jump in on someone's train of thought, or to kind of interrupt a conversation instead of really listening to understand. And Simone, you and I have been in many rooms where it's I come from a very deep ethnic family, and the loudest voice in that room generally gets heard. And we've been in many rooms where it's a constant fight to get your voice heard. I think sitting back, listening to understand, and where you support that person's opinion at the appropriate time, dovetailing in and showing your verbal support for that person is really important, because not only are you validating that person's voice in the room, but you're also giving yourself importance in that room by contributing something that's valuable to the conversation.
Thanks for the great question, Simone. So Candice, thank you so much. Sorry, would everyone like to give a round of applause there? It sounded like we wanted to clap. Thank you so much for all of the insights that you shared and encouraging us to be authentic, and for those allies in the room for us to make sure that they're uplifting our voices and making sure that everyone's being heard. Yeah, thank you so much. We're going to invite our next presenter up, which is Josie Watchhorn. Come on down. Welcome, Josie. So Josie's been with Miovision for 6 years and serves as our HR programs and recruitment specialist, as well as campus programs lead at Miovision. She was also the first person that I really interacted here with, and she really made sure that I got onboarded properly. So it's really fun to have you up here with me today. And we'd like to hear a little bit more, maybe on the technical side of HR around diversity and inclusion. So the first question we have for you is, through your experience in HR and recruiting, can you share how businesses can foster gender diversity and inclusivity?
Yeah, thanks. So I think the boring first answer is policies. I think policies ultimately help us to create a respectful and a safe and a equitable environment. But that's not everything, right? And those are to be enforced across the entire organization. I think the harder and perhaps less boring answer is that we need to be able to foster an environment where we can have safe and honest conversations, be able to have dialogue that is challenging and that is uncomfortable. In the current landscape of DEI, I think sometimes businesses at large can fall into this trap of trying to appease a broader societal narrative. And I guess when I say that, I mean, you know, we hear about affinity groups or affirmative action programs, we hear about quotas, and so because these are the things that hit the headlines, we often think that these are the things that work. But when we take that a step further, you know, there's some compelling evidence to suggest that alone, these aren't the things that actually move the needle forward in this space the way that we think that they do. And especially not if they're just being done to check a box. So I think that, you know, when we take a step back and we think about DEI, not long ago, this was merely a blimp on businesses' radar. So I don't think that's really a surprise, because now we see it in the headlines, we see it in the news, we see it on campuses, we see it in the boardrooms. And I think this external push really influences businesses in trying to make a decision that's the right decision and very quickly. And so I think sometimes checking that box can become a little bit more appealing. But the reality of this space is that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. This space can be really complicated when it comes to gender, when it comes to diversity, when it comes to minority groups at large, and it can be really yucky. So if we have a space where we can have open and honest conversations, and if we can foster that, you know, from the top down, but also across the entirety of the organization, regardless of your gender, regardless of your level, regardless of your department, there's a space that we can really sort of have a foothold to scale. In the same way we talk about scaling our product roadmaps and scaling our technical sort of solutions and our brand messages, we have to be able to have conversations like this that scale as well. And I think when we think about inclusivity like that, there is a space where all of us play a role. You know, every employee here can really make an impact in it.
Thank you so much, Josie. I think a lot of that resonates for me, and it is a really complicated space, and it's not a simple answer, but being open to having conversations isn't really that difficult. So there is the good news that we can get started with that. Could you tell me a little bit more about how we can ensure equal access to opportunities for women in male-dominated industries?
Yeah. I think there's sort of two elements here that are important. The first, when it comes to equal opportunities for women, there's an external piece. You know, there's an element of our recruitment and our hiring practices that really matter in ensuring that women have a seat at the table, and that diversity piece is really important. Paired with that is ensuring that there are hiring practices and education that ensures that we have education around the fact that diversity in the workplace matters. But diversity is only one piece of the puzzle. And there's actually a lot of research around diversity not actually working if it's not followed by inclusion. So it's one thing to sort of focus on those external steps, but it's another thing to take a look inward and say, you know, how are the women that are here with us today that we've attracted already? How are they feeling? You know, are there programs that are supporting them? And, you know, are the people that are with us right now in the organization, do they have a seat at the table? Are they respected? Are the behaviors that may be more embedded in gender inequality being addressed, or are they being tolerated?